G'day guys and gal. We often see G-Man as this infallible icon of epicness, the avenging son, the savior of the Imperium. And yes, he is all of these things, but Guilliman actually gets his ass kicked quite a lot, both in duels as well as in overall conflicts and even wars. Honestly, G-Man's greatest strength isn't his logistical might, it's his ability to get knocked down and then keep getting back up. Many other loyalist Primarchs got sick of the Imperium or got too depressed from their burden, so they dipped, whereas Guilliman literally died, was frozen for 10,000 years, and upon awakening, his first action was to kill a Cornite Berserker. The dude is awesome, but the dude loses. So I thought it would be cool to check out each time the Lord of Ultramar has taken an L. Before we get started, a massive thank you for the Biggie V2 launch, biggest major mini launch on record. We still have a few floating about, and the rest will be taken down this week, so if you have a look, you might get lucky and snag onto the last ones before they are properly gone. The team is currently busy getting these orders sent out to you. US orders are happening a bit slower because of your guys' dope as hell tariff and custom situation, and Canada Post is on strike. But we'll keep on going and get it all sent out to you, so do not worry, no matter what happens, you will get your Big E. By the end of the month, we should have about over 90% of orders fulfilled and sorted. Now that just leaves us with one more epic thing for this launch. The Dice Diorama's Big E V2 giveaway, a legendary handmade one-of-one diorama we are giving away this Sunday, with me streaming the giveaway live on Majorkill. For your chance to win, just be a Dice member or pick up a membership boost. All the money is reinvested back into the business to give away more Warhammer and dioramas. So far, we've given over $60,000 worth of Warhammer and dioramas away. Secondary prizes include a pre-painted Big E, a 1/6 scale Big E, a 1/12 scale Big E, and there will be special prizes and rewards for those that tune into the live stream. This is our coolest diorama to date, so don't miss out. See you guys on Sunday, link is below. Today we'll go over each of Lord Guilliman's losses and how it impacted him in the setting overall. Let's get into it. I will only be going over genuine, indisputable losses. Even though Calth sucked for the Ultramarines, they were victorious, so that counts as a win for G-Man. When the Shadow Crusade was reaching its peak, Guilliman and his legion finally caught up with Lorgar and Angron and engaged them in a vicious battle on Assuria. Now you gotta respect Guilliman's balls here. He took on 2 legions and then took on 2 Primarchs. The Ultramarines were actually somewhat winning. They took out the Wordbearer's Gloriana class ship and were putting in a shift, with Guilliman breaking Lorgar's ribs and then dueling Angron. However, the world was infused with warp power, Angron was ascending to become a demon prince, and the Wordbearers and World Eaters were so warp mad and bloodlusted that not even the Ultramarines could overcome them. So as Angron was turning into a massive pissed off demon, Guilliman ordered a retreat and his legion quit the field, allowing Lorgar and Angron to finish off the Ruin Storm and leave Ultramar alive, a clear defeat for Guilliman. He didn't suffer a big wound here, nor did he suffer massive losses. His attack was attended as a strike at the heart of the traitors, hoping to take out 2 Primarchs, so it was not a huge overcommitted war with a ton of attrition or losses. However, the consequences of this loss included allowing the Ruin Storm to be finished, which cut Guilliman, Sanguinius and Lion off from Terra. I wouldn't say Guilliman made a mistake here, but he was desperate and he just didn't have it in him to get the dub. During the events of Imperium Secundus, Conrad Kurz was unleashed on Macragge and started causing havoc, culminating in Guilliman and the Lion 2v1ing Conrad. Now you would think that if the Lion can beat Conrad in a 1v1, then surely a 2v1 would be a breeze. However, Conrad had lured the brothers into an arena of his choosing and was fighting defensively. He also made it hard for both of them to attack him at the same time, as Guilliman was getting in the Lion's way a bit. Conrad then activated his trap card, an explosion that collapsed the building onto the 2 loyalist Primarchs, who would have then died if it wasn't for Dantiok using the Pharos device to pull them to safety at the last second. So overall, they were lured into a trap and only survived due to plot armor, a clear loss, at least from a duel perspective. Guilliman wouldn't really taste defeat for the rest of the heresy, helping Sanguinius break through the Ruin Storm, and then again, during the Scouring, Guilliman was known for tearing through the traitors, picking the right battles and having the largest legion. However, it was also during the Scouring that Guilliman would taste his most bitter defeat of all. He began to hunt for Fulgrim and cornered his traitor brother in a star system, but it was a trap from the beginning. Fulgrim, that slithery little slut snake, had left a trail of breadcrumbs for Guilliman to follow, which ended up with Guilliman's fleet being outnumbered and in a lot of shit. There was no chance of being able to run, so Guilliman instead teleported himself and his best warriors onto Fulgrim's flagship with 2 missions in mind. Mission 1 is that various strike teams would sabotage key systems of the ship, disabling it, which would allow the Ultramarine fleet to escape. For the second mission, Guilliman, as well as his first and second companies, would attempt to attack and slay Fulgrim directly. Guilliman made it out to just be a stalling action, saying he wanted to keep Fulgrim busy while the ship was sabotaged. But in truth, Guilliman's pride, ego, and hate had gotten the better of him, and he really wanted to kill Fulgrim. Fair enough. Guilliman made his warriors stay outside of the chamber and he entered Fulgrim's lair alone. He and Fulgrim spoke with some pretty stock standard angsty loyal versus traitor Primarch beef. Guilliman called Fulgrim a little cocksucker, Fulgrim calls Guilliman delusional and tells him to join him. Fulgrim, just the usual preamble before most Primarch fights. However, Fulgrim also reveals everything was a setup, from the very first breadcrumb to now, with the sole intention of killing the Lord of Ultramar. Even as Fulgrim's ship is badly damaged from the sabotage efforts, Fulgrim doesn't care. He has Guilliman where he wants him, let his sons do their little thing. The two Primarchs engage in their duel, and Guilliman quickly realizes that taking on one of the best Primarch duelists, who is now a massive demonic snake demon in a 1v1, probably wasn't a good idea. So he calls for his warriors to aid him. Fulgrim is enraged by this, but was prepared for it, thus summons his own warriors. Now the fight is actually a reasonable back and forward. Fulgrim strikes at Guilliman with a flurry of blows. Guilliman manages to parry and block most strikes, taking minor wounds. In return, Guilliman lands a few solid shots, punching Fulgrim in the face and cutting him with the Emperor's flaming sword. Fulgrim especially despises the sword, as its demon-killing energies is a genuine threat to his existence. If Guilliman were to land a mortal blow on Fulgrim using it, Fulgrim wouldn't be banished, he would be truly killed. It was satisfying seeing the smug Fulgrim get enraged and hurt, but despite a good showing, the fight could only go one way, with Guilliman getting stabbed through the throat by Fulgrim in an attack G-Man didn't even see coming. Blood pumped from his wound as poison from the sword began entering his bloodstream and overwhelming even his Primarch physiology, so he began dying, only holding onto consciousness through sheer force of will. Now Fulgrim said that Guilliman's throat was a weak spot because that is where Corferon stabbed Guilliman with an athame during the heresy, but like, isn't it just a weak spot anyway? Like, getting a full demon sword through the neck is gonna fuck anyone up, but maybe it stopped the wound from healing or some shit, I don't know, I wasn't there. Now when Space Marines see their Primarch get mortally wounded and fall, the same thing always happens, they go fucking Super Saiyan. As Fulgrim prepared to finish the job, Guilliman's best warriors rallied to his side and threw their lives away to keep Guilliman safe. They fought back Fulgrim and slaughtered any Emperor's children who approached, dragging their lord to safety as they called in an emergency teleport extraction. Many of the Ultramarines' greatest heroes of the heresy died that day to save their lord, but the teleport was a success, which meant that Guilliman was allowed to bleed out on his own ship instead of Fulgrim's. Guilliman's last thoughts are of his brothers and his father. He stood at the edge of death and peered into the warp, but before it consumed him properly, he felt a bright light and then nothingness. The Ultramarines flew their ships clear of the Emperor's children and escaped, Fulgrim's flagship being crippled and unable to pursue. This was Guilliman's most decisive defeat to date. Now Guilliman didn't actually quite die here, at least not fully. The Emperor, at the last moment, protected Guilliman's soul, which was when he saw the bright light. Guilliman's body was preserved by stasis, and his soul was protected from the warp by the Emperor. So when the science of Belisarius and the death magic of the Elder were combined, Guilliman's soul and body were able to be seamlessly rebonded, allowing for a clean resurrection. If Guilliman's body had been allowed to rot or his soul allowed to be cast into the warp, the odds of bringing him back were next to zero, especially not back as the man he once was. So the Ultramarines sacrificed to bring their lord to safety, and the effort of the Emperor to save his soul were not wasted. Although this would be the greatest of Guilliman's defeats, post-resurrection in the current setting, the man didn't suddenly become immune to copping L's. During the Terran Crusade, which was Guilliman attempting to reach Terra after being resurrected in Ultramar, the forces of Tzeentch were right up his ass and even managed to deal G-Man a pretty sophisticated defeat. Kairos Fate Weaver started spinning up a spell, subtly feeding into Guilliman's doubt. When Kairos and the Red Corsairs attacked Guilliman's fleet, Kairos was able to use the doubt in Guilliman's mind, some of it natural, a lot of it implanted by Kairos, to create crystal chains and bind the Primarch, putting him at Kairos' mercy, which caused the Terran Crusade warriors to surrender to save their lord. This was a genuine defeat. Kairos outplayed Guilliman, had him at his mercy, and he forced a surrender. You would think he should have just killed Guilliman then and there, but that wouldn't be very Tzeentch-like now, would it? Guilliman would only survive and reach Terra as Elder Harlequins and the fallen angel Cypher would rescue him and his surviving warriors from Kairos' prison on a Blackstone fortress. So the Terran Crusade was able to continue, but only after suffering this decisive defeat. Guilliman wouldn't taste many more defeats after this. He beat back Magnus from Luna, he defeated the Khornite army that invaded Terra, his Indomitus Crusade was crushing victory after crushing victory, but then Mortarion and the Death Guard invaded Ultramar and kicked off the Plague Wars. This next defeat is quite controversial, as it kind of isn't a defeat, but it's worth mentioning. Mortarion was desperate to slay Guilliman, even cooking up a special virus called the Godblight. Likewise, Guilliman was desperate to slay Mortarion, because no shit. Hence the Plague Wars peaked with a duel between the two brothers. Once again, Guilliman thought he was like the Bruce Lee of Primarchs or some shit, but Mortarion's greater power overcame his brother and Guilliman was injected with the Godblight and more or less died. But he survived! The Emperor came in clutch, possessed G-Man, cured him, and then set Nurgle's garden on fire while shit-talking everyone who followed Papa Nurgle. So technically that is an Imperial victory, but more through the Emperor just totally not being a god, you know. Without the Emperor's intervention, which wasn't expected, Guilliman would have lost the duel and then lost the Plague Wars, or at least this particular battle, so I don't really know how to class that one. Now for his next defeat, which is also Guilliman's final for this video. However, I need to quickly make a chronological note. The chronology of the new Warhammer books is a bit of a fucking mess. There's even in-law joke jokes about it, and the Indominus Crusade timeline was modified by GW to make it more coherent. Also, the order the books came out in is all over the shop. For example, Dark Imperium came out in 2017, but the Dawn of Fire Silent King book came out in 2015, despite the Silent King book being set before Dark Imperium. So this last defeat actually happened before G-Man's fight with Mortarion, but is the most recent defeat that has been released in the lore. Got it? Good. The Necrons under the Silent King had become a genuine threat to the Imperium due to the effect of the Pariah Nexus, a null zone that crushed your soul and more or less killed the warp within its zone. Now the warp has a lot of bad in it, but it's also essential for sentient life to exist, so a galaxy without the warp would also be unable to sustain sentient life. Guilliman wanted to destroy the Pariah Nexus, so he invaded it. Now while some objectives were achieved, such as the destruction of some pylons, as well as Belisarius achieving a strategic victory and sabotaging a chunk of the Pariah Nexus, as well as there being a cool scene which revealed that the Emperor's Sword also deletes Necron reanimation protocols, giving Necrons true deaths in a similar fashion to demons, Guilliman and his forces were overwhelmed and pushed back, suffering huge losses. The Pariah Nexus remained intact, although it did suffer damage and some setbacks, with Guilliman lamenting his loss and preparing to head back to Ultramar as he suspects Mortarion will soon invade, creating the setup for Dark Imperium. Here is the chronological modern-day 40k book order for those of us that were confused as I was. I'll make sure I read these chronologically from now on for better coherence. Post-battling Mortarion, Guilliman is currently turning his attention to combating the Tyranid threat, so maybe he'll pick up an L or two over there as well. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then join Dice Dioramas for your chance to take the Big EV2 diorama home, as well as other awesome secondary prizes. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.